All right.
It should be recording. There we go.
Okay. Well, good morning or afternoon or evening, Christ the King and friends, whenever it is that you're watching this, whatever time of day. We're so glad to have you, and thank you so much for tuning in to this important conversation. So you probably see two familiar faces and one new face. So I'm Carolyn Filstrom. Nat is Nat, Anderson Lippert. We're both on the anti-racism ministry team at Christ the King, and we are really excited and honored to have with us a friend of Christ the King, a fellow ELCA Lutheran, an Augsburg Junior college student, Trevon Tellor. And Trevon is joining us today, this morning, again, whenever it is that you're watching this. And Trey's going to be talking to us a little bit about his own experience growing up in Bloomington. Trey is a Bloomington native, and some of the anti-racism work that he does in terms of education. So, Trey, welcome to virtual Christ the King,
Thanks.
Lutheran Church.
Thanks.
Where are you joining us from?
Like in Como. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Over in St. Paul?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
So,
great.
Yeah.
Great. So Trey, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know I did a little bit of an intro, but what did I forget? What did I miss?
Theology at Augsburg. Hopefully going to be like pastor. Political radical.
Just like Jesus?
Yeah, that's like pretty much me. Grew up in Bloomington since I was like 3 or 4. Rocky Road, very weird place to like grow up here, but.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we would be really interested to hear about, anything more that you might want to share about that. I heard you say it was kind of a rocky road growing up in Bloomington.
Yeah, it kind of like starts with my like dad. When like I was 1, he was driving without his like license 3 or 4 times, and it was in Bloomington is where like he was like jailed, and then they like brought him to like court, and he was put in jail for like a year for like driving and so like that was like where it was like, okay, Bloomington is racist. But then like growing up, it wasn't a big deal because I'm like half white and like culturally I like get it. And I was like younger. And so like growing up, it wasn't like too big of an issue. I'd get in trouble in like class for just like talking a lot, but everybody else would talk a lot. And it was just because like he's loud and black. But then I reached like 12 or 13 and I wasn't like cute. I was like a large like black guy. And that's kind of where it got weird with kids. They'd be like, oh, you aren't really black, you're like Oreo, which is like really harming because I was like, oh, maybe I'm not black and I'm just like white. And so I like clinged and claimed to be white till I was like 14, like 15. Just because it's like I was told that like being black is like drugs and gangs, which is just like clearly not what being black is. And so like that kept going on for like a really long time. And then it was the Michael Brown killing. There was like we all wore black. There's like a lot of kids who just like wore black, and we all just got like yelled at by just like kids who are all just like, oh, you're like really like racist. And I'm like, how am I the real racist? I'm just don't want to get killed for being black. And so like the kind of racism that was like in Bloomington was never like overt racism. It was always just like small like quibs that just kind of like sprung out. And then Trump got elected, and then it kicked into like gear, and everybody was like straight up racist. I remember some underclassmen like had a like human wall to like block off like us from like going into the library. And then our principal was like, "Oh, that never happened." And we all were like, "I don't know, Jason. Like, we like watched it happen." And there was just like a lot of that. We'd have like class talks. I remember like AP government, we talked about like, it was like economic justice. And like this one kid was just talking about how like blacks are like lazy and all this stuff. And I was like, how is this being brought up in a classroom? And it like was addressed, but it was never like really addressed. She was just like, oh, that's not really true. You can't like talk about that. But like there weren't any like real like he wasn't like out of like school. There was no like consequences. And then like the same thing happened. We tried to like start a group my junior year called Students and Staff Together advocating for like racial reform. And so we had like posters up for like, and so we put a few of them up, and it was people like MLK, Malcolm X, Huey Newton, and like Angela. And this like white kid just wrote like crap on it. If I recall, he wrote like terrorist on the one for like Huey and Angela. And like, okay, Black Panthers, more militant than like what we're used to, but they're just not terrorists. And that kid got like in school suspension for a day, and nobody like brought it up, even though like that's kind of like a huge problem. So like it was just like a lot of like small like things, and I think I kind of skated by a lot of the time because like I'm half white. Um, I can talk in a white manner if I want to. And like I have the like cultural like knowledge of like how to interact with like white like people. But yeah, so it was just like a lot of like small like, and it just like added up, and I like graduated, and then I went to like college, and Augsburg is like 45% people of like, and so it was wild because I was like, oh, people aren't being racist to me on a like all the time here. Like I can just exist as a black person. This is really cool. And so I like didn't realize how like bad it was like till I left, kind of. Like I knew it was bad, but it was not till I like left.
Yeah, yeah. Great. So first of all, to clarify, this all happened within the Bloomington Public Schools system.
Yeah. I went to Bloomington schools, K through 12. Like I went to Normandale Hills, Ridgeview for the Gifted and Talented program, and then I went to Olson and Jefferson.
Yeah. First of all, as a Bloomington resident, I'm so sorry that that was your experience. And as you were speaking, it made me think about Dr. Ibram X. Kennedy's book that I just got like halfway through, How to Be an Anti-Racist. And in it, he was advocating that we no longer use the term microaggression and that we use the term abuse. And that insight stuck with me from my pastor and chaplain lens, because that's some of the training that I got, that in order to help people heal from abuse, one, the abuse needs to stop. And then two, abuse needs to be named as abuse. So I thought that was such an interesting insight. And as you spoke and you described some of these instances, and you said, well, it was a bunch of little things. And like some of the things that you shared, I'm like, actually, I don't think that's very little. Like that's pretty big. Like some of those things were actually pretty big. And so I wonder, like, just again with my pastor hat on here, like it sounds like as a child, you experienced some racist abuse
Yeah.
in the school system.
Yeah, and I didn't even get a lot of it, just like because I'm half and like I am intelligent or like whatever, so I could kind of like ease out of it a lot of the time. Um, but like that's not like possible for like for like half of us, a lot of us, just like because like they don't have the like cultural knowledge of like whiteness. Um,
Yeah. So being biracial kind of put you in a particular situation with that.
yeah, I like am black, but I can also like relate to like white cultural, because I was just like raised with like just like my like grandpa like raised me for like 8 years, and he's like a 70-year-old like white guy. So like
Mm-hmm.
um, it's like easier to like relate. And I had to like learn being black like as I kind of uh like I like didn't really become like comfy with just like being black until I like was in like college, and I was like, oh, so being black means I can be like whatever I want, but I'm still black, which is like awesome and kind of like freeing to like not have like, oh, I'm not really black, which is just like gaslighting. Um,
Absolutely.
so like yeah, it was just like 18 years of, or I guess like 13 years of like gaslighting pretty much.
Right. Right. And just so profound too, if there's anyone out there that doesn't know the term gaslighting, just another term from the world of abuse. And just heartbreaking to hear what you've gone through. But I'm so glad to hear that you've had a much better experience at college. Um, Before we jump to that, because I know there is some really hopeful stuff that we have to talk about and some great work that you've done, I'm also wondering if you would want to share anything about what your experience was growing up in the Lutheran Church. And you don't necessarily need to like name certain congregation or anything if
Yeah,
you don't want to, but just kind of in general, like did you find that the Lutheran Church, even talked about race?
yeah. Never talked about race, like literally ever. I went to a Missouri like Lutheran church for the first 5, 6 years of my life, because I was like, Grandpa, church, and he's like, well, we can't be Catholic anymore, so Lutherans are cool. And so we like went, and it was like really cool, and it was like a great like it was like a really great place, and that's like where I like joined choir, which I've been like doing now for like 14 years. So like that was really cool, and like everybody was like really kind. Um, but there was no like talking about race. There was no talking about like justice. It was very like like, are you a good Christian? And like talking about like, are you lying or not? Or like, are you like cheating? Which like, okay, cool, but like, there's a lot here. And then as I got older, a lot of it was more about like being gay, or that like evolution wasn't real, which is like when I left, because I was like 12, and I was like, evolution's real, I'm leaving. So then we went to ELCA, um, and I really loved it there. People were really sweet. Um, but I was older, and I could kind of tell the like distant coldness of some of the older like white people. Still nice to me, but like I could tell that like I was kind of like a novelty around there. Um, and so like even when like Trump was like president, there was no like, hey, are you okay? Or like when like Michael Brown was murdered, I think 2014, 2015, there was nobody who was like, yo, Trey, like, are you okay? Um,
Wow.
it was just like white church, just like you like come and then you talk about Jesus and you have like pizza and then you leave. Or like, um, so yeah, it was kind of hard. And it's like why I left like church when I was like 16, because I was like, So I was like, well, I'm like a radical now, and like the church isn't doing what I want it to do. And so I was like, churches can't be anti-racist, which I learned is not true. But yeah, it's like kind of like why I just like humped out, because I was like, this isn't doing it. And like,
Yeah.
and like all the like right work was just like done by like anarchists and all of these like radicals who were like anti-Christian. And so I was like, all right, cool, fine, this works.
Yeah. So that makes me think of a quote from I think it's Shane Claiborne, one of my faith mentors. That's like, there's a lot of people who say they're Christians that really don't look like Jesus, and there's a lot of people who, you know, would never claim to have anything to do with Jesus that look a lot more like Jesus. You know.
Yeah.
So like what kind of boggles my soul, just from my faith, is that you were in supposedly Christian community with people who, I mean, not only didn't check in on you when Mike Brown died, like didn't really seem to bother them that much.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
yeah, like I don't recall
wild.
like anybody like bringing it up, which is just wild.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Oh, Trey, you've been through a lot in the school system, in the church, and here you are now, you know, at Augsburg, and you have gotten involved with probably a number of different kind of movements and stuff. But like specifically, could you tell us a little bit about the Bloomington Anti-Racism Coalition?
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Yeah, so like originally it was like a call to action for the removal of cops in schools, and then also an open letter um, that was like written by like me and a couple others that was trying to get like a on anti like racist and in our like curriculums. And then we merged like 2 to 3 weeks after we like wrote that with the like call to action group. And so now it's like a dual like purpose group. Though I will say that like the curriculum part is a lot easier and we're moving on that, but like getting cops out of schools is one of those things that we're gonna have to like work on because it's not going anywhere right now.
So actually, I'm going to invite Nat to jump in. And so this is exciting. You know, within Christ the King, we really do have so many different cool people, and Nat's super cool and has done a lot of work with teachers. Would you say across the state, Nat? Or I mean,
yeah, now like, it's well, yes, but we don't need to talk about that. Yes,
you don't want to talk about that.
No.
I was just wondering, Nat, is this some of the things that Trey is talking about, like you know, getting cops out of schools, trying to do more anti-racist curriculum. Just generally, Nat, is that anything that you've seen elsewhere?
Oh yeah, I mean the struggles are very common in a lot of places, and I actually maybe one way to get at that is a follow-up question that I was going to pose to Trevon of because you just said something that probably sounds mundane of like that's not going anywhere anytime soon, cops out of schools, and I guess I would just pose the question like, why do you think that is? I would agree with you, but why?
Yeah, well, it worked in Hopkins, right? Because we worked with a like group of kids who they went, and I think Hopkins cut its contract with Minnetonka Police Department, But in Bloomington, it's just our like board for a school isn't very responsive, and they claim to be progressive, like a few of them, but they don't do it. It's just like talking, like, oh, we're like really great, and I'm like, okay, then prove it, right? And so like we've really talked to them, and we even had a meeting with like couple like board people and the like superintendent and the chief of police. Didn't go anywhere. He was just like, our cops aren't racist. And everybody just like believed it. And I'm like, okay, first of all, how are you going to tell me that every one of your cops isn't racist? Like, you just can't prove it.
That's absurd.
And also, two, we know that they're racist. So yeah, it's just like, who's running it? They're not listening very well. We've asked to like talk to them at like meetings. They won't let us like we were supposed to like do a whole like slide like show kind of like thing in like August or July. Never happened. And the only kind of like compromise that we've had is one of the like curriculum leads who's like meeting with us this week. So yeah, and also just like Bloomington as a whole is one of those like white moderate places, right? Where it's like we're like Democrats, but like, what does that really mean? And I think we're really into like pretending that we're like liberals without actually like pushing it any like further.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that seems like a common thread to some of the things you talked about growing up in school as well. And one thing I'm curious about finding out, because I think that that's kind of a daunting picture, right, of entrenched power. And I'm curious about, one thing I feel like I heard you say a number of times is like there were moments throughout growing up and then more recently where you've kind of decided to organize and take action and not be resigned, but actually get together with your peers and organize. And I'm curious about that decision, which is not, I think is available to everyone, but not natural for everyone. Like, can you talk about that? Like what in you led to that repeated decision?
Yeah, I mean, like grandpa, right? He was like iron. He was he worked in like the Mintac mine up on the range. And his dad did, and his dad was like a corporate cop. But so like we have like union in our blood, and so I was like, huh, unions worked for my grandpa, so maybe I should work with others. And it just kind of like worked out. I've been daunted by it a few times because it's like kind of difficult, especially when you're like younger, to like do this, right? Because it's like there's no like structure, there's no like union like structure. And like I had joined other groups in like the past, like the industrial workers of the world, and like they were cool, but they weren't like organizing. It was just like, let's like hang out and read and talk, which like cool, but like that's not what I want to do. And so I was like, no one else is doing it, so I guess we just got to do it. And also like in June, the whole like uprising, it was a good experience to be there and live through it. But I realized like this isn't going to work if like we're all just like running around, right? Like we actually have to like form groups and like talk and really like push as a like yeah, just like not like on our own, because like there's a lot of like people are like, oh, I'll like write to our like our like Congress guy, which like, okay, you can do that, but like it's just you. But if you
Mhm.
get like 20 of you, then you're
Mhm.
like working with, so yeah.
Well, and that was kind of my follow-up question is, given the daunting picture that you painted, which I think is completely accurate, like have there been any successes that you have come out of the organizing that you all have done?
Yeah, I mean, like one of the big ones was like the march we had in July, which was like really cool because I was like, there's hundreds here who actually like care, and that was like really, really wild, and that was like really big. And we even like went up against like fascists, and we won, I would argue. Um, so yeah, like that was like a really big win. We've gotten like kids involved now. Like when we first were like getting up and running, like three-quarters of us like were in college, but now like half of us are like anywhere from like ninth to 12th grade, um, which is like really, really cool.
It's great.
And so like they're like being trained in how to like organize, which is awesome because I didn't know until now, and I'm like learning because I have no idea what I'm doing right now. And so we have like kids who are like 14 who are just like learning, and so when like they're around 20, they're going to be awesome. So
That's awesome. I think I feel that way all the time organizing too, that I think we all feel that way. So,
yeah,
Uh, Trey, as I sit here and listen to you, I just feel so inspired, and I think about the. I was, for some reason, I was just like watching some of those old like PBS documentaries about the civil rights movement, and they're talking about SNCC and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. If I did I have that right?
yeah,
And they had one of the like SNCC participants now, giving an interview, and she was saying it is hard to imagine the civil rights movement without students. And I feel so excited to hear that you're getting more students involved, and good for you. That's great. And it's fun for me because I've seen y'all grow like from the summer until now, so that's really exciting. And um I Pastor Rory, my husband, has said he's been angry because he said, I see how I get treated differently as a white male heterosexual pastor when I contact, you know, someone, some city employee or city leader, and because he's talked to some BARC people too, and tried to kind of be an advocate. So that just kind of brings me to my last question is, like, for those of us who do want to support your work, support your cause, maybe are feeling a little isolated, especially with a pandemic, like how could we, I don't want to say join, but how could we like appropriately support the effort here in Bloomington?
yeah. Well, I know for the board meetings for the school, they have like public comment, and we flooded that once, and it actually kind of worked. So if you just want to keep like writing in, right? Like, hey, like work on it. And it just keeps like happening again. I think that'll be a push for them because I think the board values like parents' opinions more than ours because they pay the taxes. So like parents just like writing in and just like talking about it would be like really good. But yeah, just like pressure because like that's what works. It's just like constant, just like pressure. Because like what they're really trying to do is just like wait it out. But that's not going to happen. So, but yeah, so just like writing in, calling in. We have like action prompts every once in a while. So if you like follow us on Instagram or like Facebook, you'll like have it there, and our like action prompts. And if parents want to like organize like an anti-racist parents union kind of thing, if you want to do that, that would be awesome. So
Great ideas.
Yeah.
Nat, any final thoughts from you?
No, my mind is buzzing about parents, anti-racist parents union that's open to parents of kids who are not yet in the schools, for example, for
Yeah.
us, Carolyn.
I know.
But no, and also about, I think, Trevon, I really like your idea of us being contacting the school board, because I think that we could easily organize a specific month or time when Christ the King does that together and kind of test it out and see how it goes. I really appreciate that.
Awesome. Yeah.
Trey, thank you so much. Will you come back and talk to us again?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I will,
Okay.
of course, be back.
We're so excited to have you as a leader in the Twin Cities and especially in the church.
Yeah.
So, and actually Rory mentioned, he said, Trey would be a great person to come talk to our youth as well. And I want to make sure that all the Christ the King youth know about BARC and that they know that they could participate.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, Trey. Any final thoughts from you?
Not really. Just keep like pressure up, help out when you can, and like parents union, that would be really awesome. So please, like at least try on that.
All right. All right. Thanks, Trey.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Trey.